Hello. This is very weird. I am going to read from something I have been working on for a little while. And it's new and it's not been edited. So that is frightening. Okay. 7 now. So I think I will start very shortly from a novel, potentially. This section is called Beautiful Town. Mother had a book she liked to read to me as a child. She must have obsessed and overwhelmed her. In the book we read, which I think my mother acquired in a gift shop, there were different types of farmyard animals with their various attributes listed alongside them. I was much too old for it. I understood the era that seemed to engulf us as a trio, the diner, the street. I believe my father was dead at this point. My mother told me even if he had been alive, he wouldn't have any interest in the book. He wasn't smart, like you needed to be smart to point at a page. My mother was irritated by my father's early death, which she was convinced had demoted us from an average father. There was something happening under their dry, calm frolicking. If it was late at all, her diagnosis. I've told this story to a couple of people I work with. It's the type of humor I bring to my colleagues. Where I live now, it's not a question of wit. We don't have those sorts of desires. It's more a matter of correspondence. I'm having an ordinary day as you. My thoughts are standardized as yours. The laughs are chastier. When my mother died in those early few weeks, I emailed the publishing company responsible for the farmyard book. I considered this a highly productive act, a spiritual mission. It was the mid-90s and people were still getting to grips with email. There were articles and magazines I subscribed to. I looked my mom through these dispatches from the city on how to send an email, how to receive an email, etiquette. I like to think we recognized each other at once. I think firstly the publishing company were alarmed by the amount of emails I sent. Every 5 minutes or so, a new email would burst out of me. Like I needed a proper trousers and blouse to sit and type in. I needed furniture that I could maneuver around the room for hours. I wanted to fill that space. I felt the world would be a lot friendlier if I had a lot of stuff required to sound strange at all. The makers of the farmyard book, were they still alive? Couldn't have known the spell they were going to cast on my proud mother's heart when they grouped the animals together in this particular formation, when they drank those warm-faced sheep and soft work. For lunch, I usually had. She would call me once I was at home from the street, mother's cheek with a knife. I walked and walked. I don't know because I know if this was my mother's life or the life of a different woman, a woman who worked in a movie, dirt in her bloodstream contributing to her death, slipping on her coat, walking to the sub of the dark, thinking of course they had crank callers in the past, people who had kept them on the line with sad details of their lives, their voices quivering with regret. It's easy to dismiss a call like that, hang up and walk away, roll your eyes at a colleague as they speak to communicate that the person on the other end is murderously stupid, make comical faces. There was something more alarming and unexpected about my emails. Nobody wanted to turn on the computer and read about a deranged person's life. I was the minority then. Now I'm the majority. They sent another email threatening legal action. Where would I get the money? Where would I even get a lawyer? I didn't know anybody like that. What was most bizarre about the threatening email was how little it changed me. I still wasn't embarrassed. I wasn't embarrassed at any stage of this. Occasionally I become embarrassed in short hot flushes when I picture you seeing my life as it is. The banal talk shows I keep on rotation, my underwear rising coarsely over my trousers as I reach for a cereal in the supermarket. Talk, the pointless things that come out of my mouth. When I feel most emotionally naked, that's when I know you're watching, examining my face, suddenly red and thick. My mother wasn't an easy woman to love. We didn't have much contact for 10 years and only connected in the last 5, when she regained a curiosity that had been blunted by her alcoholism. I saw some evidence of this early curiosity in her apartment, the trinkets and souvenirs that suggested she travelled before I was born, even in the farmyard book, and its luxurious texture that seemed to belong to a family wealthier than my own. I remember in the last 6 months of her life, she started asking questions she wouldn't normally have. I blamed the young nurses who, demonstrating professional calm in the face of death, scattered their gossip magazines around the home. The front pages were occupied with celebrities, their hard, glittering smiles, but the back pages were full of stories about women having sex on planes, in nightclubs, in offices where they were the bosses. One day, my mother asked me if I had ever faked an orgasm. She was sucking from a straw stuck in a carton of orange juice. Why? I asked. Why does it matter? She was diminished, helplessly thin. She always said working in the diner, smelling the rotten food all day, had ruined her appetite. Women do it. Yeah, they do. Even the well-paid ones. Especially the well-paid ones, I replied, wiping a glob of spit at the side of her mouth. I was used to this, cleaning her nose and dressing her, all the little indignities. She sniffed and removed the straw. She fixed me with a cold, determined look. Why? I suppose I said it's to do with kindness and being pleasant. For goodwill, she said with disgust. Sure. Did you never? No, she said. It's so insulting. I never did. She seemed pleased with herself. I tried to explain how it was potentially more insulting to not fake it, but she had already moved away from the conversation, away from me. Not much later, a carer came in and carried her to bed. In the car, I was seized by uncontrollable giggles. I couldn't shake the image of my mother's blatant disappointment with my father, how many times they'd been together, whatever she did with Mikey, whoever else crossed her path in the diner. The evidence of their failures written all over her pinched and furious face. It was so cruel. It was so funny. She never knew how funny she was. I laughed so much I cried, and then I cried because my mother, who was too stubborn for life, too stubborn to fake one measly orgasm, was definitely going to die. A short time after, I was told to stop emailing the publishing company, and life resumed in its normal, slow manner. I received a book in the post. It was the farmyard book, and over the face of each animal was a woolly sheep. It was obviously handmade, done outside of office hours. I don't know if it was done to appease me. By then I had returned to work, stopped emailing, or out of kindness. Either way, the gesture touched me. I stood in my dingy kitchen with the book in my hand and cried. I had either lost or regained something I couldn't place. I cleaned out the fridge, and then I went to bed for a full week. I didn't cry at my mother's funeral. I had everything neatly arranged. I organised the flowers, the priest. It was in the small chapel beside the home, which had a lot of ugly details my mother wouldn't have appreciated. Small scratched windows, ruined tiles. She would have preferred somewhere bigger. I had an overwhelming desire to touch her in the chapel, a feeling I had never had before in my life. When the priest, routine and effeminate, brought me into his large ceilinged room and asked if I wanted an open or closed casket, I said closed. His voice was tender but put on, priestly. I wanted to say, just be real with me, would you? Like my mother used to when I came home late and lied blatantly and cheerfully. Not many people came. Some friends of hers from the home, one or two familiar faces from work, a few polite nurses sitting on a stone bench down the back. I imagine my mother asking these women if they had ever faked orgasms, and later the women laughing and shrieking about it on their tea breaks. People are disrespectful like that. It made me angry, so I tried to lose myself in prayer, mumbling the familiar floating words. Faces from my mother's life appeared and disappeared before me, and then her own weary face transpiring from the mist of a grill, her uniform back as she walked down a trash-strewn street. My mother had fed a lot of people, and she had looked refined while she did it. Where were all those people now? All of them allowed her to shovel food into their wet, unsatisfied mouths, and then moved right past her. Afterwards, when I was outside having a cigarette, the priest rested his stubby hand on my arms and asked if I was all right. People are rude, I said. I drove back home. Sitting in the driveway with my seatbelt still on, I knew there had been no need for that goodbye. I was probably more disorientated and depressed by the funeral than the death. I shouldn't have gone and sat in that stifling church. It's only tradition that forces you to go to your mother's funeral, kneel and pretend with your hands clasped. You wouldn't have gone. You would have sent flowers. Thank you. That's all I'm going to read. I can't read for longer than 14 minutes and 36 seconds. Thank you. This has been very fun. I will end the stream.